Why shouldn't they be castigated, the players? Why shouldn't they be pulled up by their bootstraps? Why shouldn't they be put in their place and reminded of the responsibilities of the ridiculous opportunity they're getting to play football at the highest level for the biggest rewards? This is One-to-One with Simon Jordan. Don't forget to, of course, keep liking and subscribing, and equally as important, in fact more importantly, leaving those brilliant questions in the comment section below. Let's get on with this week's show. Jake, look, I mean, this relationship the managers seem to want to have on the touchline with the crowd, with their players, and with the jumping around like a demented jack-in-a-box. Listen, you can pick up Arteta up on it, but he is not the architect of this. He wasn't the originator of it. We've seen Jurgen Klopp doing it. We've seen Jose Mourinho doing it. We've seen a plethora of managers doing it. What it seems to do is it seems to slightly irritate people that Arteta's doing it now. I don't know why. Whether they think that Arteta's only stripes or should be in a position to be able to do that, I don't know. It is a little bit elevated. It is a little bit exaggerated, and animated and over the top. But my word, is it currently being effective? Do I like managers doing that? Not necessarily. I think it's exhibitionism. I don't really think it smacks of a great deal of substance, and I don't like them being out of their technical area when they come down the touchline, but that's up to the officials. And for me to suggest that other managers can do it, and they do it across the board, and there are real high-profile cases of them doing it, and Jurgen Klopp is a case in point, then I can't have an issue with Arteta doing it. You know, what he's got is a complete connection with the fan base. Arsenal is often accused of the Emirates of being a library. It ain't a library no more. A winning team will give you that feeling, but ultimately the manager has harnessed the fans, the passion of the fans through him into the players, and you've got a winning formula and you've got a team here that can win this league. So no, it doesn't irritate me. No, I don't think it's over the top, and I don't necessarily want that. It is over the top, but by the standards of other managers, it's not over the top. So with that in mind, it would hardly be right to single out Arteta. So, you know, I'm in the camp of often wondering what Chris Eubank Jr is, besides a remarkable self-promotionist. You know, he is wonderful at self-aggrandising. He has elevated himself prior to this convincing loss to being the most marketable British fighter behind probably Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, which is perplexing given he hasn't operated at that level. He masquerades under the mantra of winning a world title, which he hasn't. Now, whether he wants to retire or not is for him. Now, sport is indexed to money. There is money out there for Chris Eubank Jr. He makes a big song and dance about how much money he's got and how much money he's made and what mansion he doesn't live in. My issue with Chris has always been that you talk a good game, but you talk more about it than actually you do actually doing it. Now, nobody saw that result on Saturday, really. I had hoped that Liam Smith would win that fight. I had an inkling that he might, but I also felt that there was a distinct possibility that Chris Eubank thought he'd taken this fight because it was a slightly diminished Liam Smith based upon his last performance. And boy, did he get it wrong. Nobody in that arena, I was sat ringside, nobody in that arena saw that fourth round knockout coming, especially after the third round when it appeared that Chris Eubank was beginning to tee off a little bit on Liam Smith, getting very uppercut happy. But it was a heavy loss in terms of he was dropped heavy. Ridiculous arguments or debate he was having afterwards that the referee stopped it too early is just preposterous, because the only thing he stopped him from getting was getting really badly hurt because he was not in good shape. As far as retiring is concerned, well, I think he's retired for some time from having real fights, because he always promises real fights and never has them. And obviously part and parcel of him losing that fight, in my view, is the fact if you don't have proper elite fights, when you do get in with an elite fighter that's still capable, that's what can happen to you. There's a rematch clause. I hope, if there's any elegance in sport, which there isn't, and especially not in boxing at times, that he will allow Liam Smith to go on with his journey, because the rematch clause was really based upon a marginal decision or something that created a degree of debate about the outcome. You can't debate that outcome, can you? I mean, Liam Smith cleaned his clock, knocked him out in no uncertain times. So I don't want him to retire. I actually, despite my vitriol at times towards Chris Eubank Jr, I actually admire him because I think he's an absolute master in the media. I think he has the ability to be able to engage and alienate in the same sentence, which is a wonderful trait in the media because it gets people engaged and involved and having an opinion, and that's what media sometimes is all about. Do I think he should retire? Only he knows how physically he was. I suspect he won't. But I wouldn't advocate for him either staying or retiring. He's a 33-year-old fighter that knows his own body. And I suspect Conor Benn, when he gets himself into a better condition, is a big bag of cash waiting around the corner. And if you're a professional fighter and you know that it's there, most people, if they were in that space, would probably say, I'll take that fight. But as far as top-level boxing and the argument and the debate that constantly rages around Eubank Jr, is he good enough? Will he win a world title? I think we saw our answer on Saturday night. So if his ambitions were to continue fighting till he wins a world title, on that basis I think he should retire. If his ambitions are to give himself an opportunity to maybe rebuild and make some money on the way and look credible, then probably not retire. But either which way, I'm ambivalent about Chris Eubank Jr. I mean, ultimately, when you're talking about Manchester City and you're talking about criticising players, the idea, the football mythology is that it's a taboo for managers to criticise players or to criticise fans or to criticise anybody because it alienates and it disenfranchises and it creates division. But why shouldn't managers be able to comment on the behaviour of those that aren't performing for them? Now, with the fans in mind, there's a balance between people saying, well, come on now, you've got to remember this team have won 4 out of the last 5 Premier League titles, cut them some slack. But nobody cuts them some slack when it comes to the economic rewards these players get. And I know I make a lot of these things about money, but let's have it right. If you're paid this kind of money, then you should be at your very best every week, week in, week out. And whilst the City fans probably are in a territory of expecting a little bit more and a little bit expectant, why shouldn't they be? They've got the best manager, they've got one of the biggest budgets, they've got the best team, the best players, they've signed the best centre forward in world football. Why shouldn't their fans be constantly demanding every week to see their very best? And too much of it in football and too many people give excuses and give a reason why, and ultimately the reason why is the players weren't applying themselves, because they soon applied themselves in the second half against Tottenham, and when they applied themselves in the second half they scored 4 goals and ripped Tottenham a new one. So you have to say, whilst there's an element of saying, well, hang on, Man City fans, you never had it so good, on the other side of the argument is, why shouldn't they be castigated, the players? Why shouldn't they be pulled up by their bootstraps? Why shouldn't they be put in their place and reminded of the responsibilities of the ridiculous opportunity they're getting to play football at the highest level for the biggest rewards? So I'm in both camps. You know, Man City fans, certain segments of Man City fans irritate me because you're not allowed to say anything other than something complimentary. And I suppose that can be levied at a lot of football clubs, because the moment if you say something nice about their football club, they love you. If you say something awful about their football club, or fair, that's bared upon critical, then they hate you. So I'm in the camp of Pep Guardiola. Had the right to say the things he said. I think he went a little bit narcissistic about, I want my fans back. Okay, right, okay. But, you know, you saw the outcome. Ends justifies the means, I suppose. Tottenham Hotspur were dispatched, Wolves were next, and Man City are back in the groove. And if you have to remind players of how to behave, and if the fans are part of that by booing, I always believe if you can cheer, you can boo, as long as it's fair. And possibly it wasn't fair, but they've just come off the back of a defeat to Liverpool, to Manchester United in the derby. And so with that in mind, the Man City fans might have been slightly irritated with the performance that saw Tottenham 2-0 up. So whilst I don't advocate for booing, I do understand it, and I don't have a view that they're particularly entitled or unentitled to do that. I mean, certainly I think that the game on Saturday was better for Chelsea than it was for Liverpool. Whilst the goalless draw doesn't take anyone away from it with the greatest of enthusiasms, you saw a new player coming in for Chelsea who looked like a live wire. Chelsea looked better. Liverpool looked a little bit out of sorts. You could never write even one of those two sides off, because when they've got their starting 11 and their best players out, they're a match for anybody, probably in European football. You know, Chelsea have got a lot of injuries, you know, so have Liverpool. The managers will make the difference. This league is a unique one this season, despite what people may think about the way the teams are performing. It's undeniable that perhaps the World Cup is having a little bit of an impact on certain teams. We're only halfway through the season. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both get inside the top 4. They're going to have to get a shift on, and there's no indication that they are in that groove. And when the Champions League starts, we'll see if that adds to the mix and adds value or takes away. But I don't think you'll see even one of these sides be as bad, potentially, bad is the right word, as they've been in the first 19 or 20 games. And whether their increase and their arrival back to some form of recognised Chelsea and Liverpool form will be sufficient to get them in the top 4, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them did. I'm not sure which one. If I was to pick a likely one, I'd probably pick Chelsea. Whilst I think Potter is a little bit out of sorts with a big football club and trying to find his way around it, I think he's got a slightly better squad than Liverpool's and a deeper squad. Liverpool, I think, have got a better player, and I think they've got better players when they've got their best 11. And I think Liverpool have got a better manager, but they do look out of sorts. They don't look together, and despite the protestations of his managers about seeing green shoots and believing that they're in the right space and that they're seeing the right attitude, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. So the answer is a little bit ambiguous. I can see both of them getting in, not together, not as a result of both of them in terms of both will be inside the top 4, but one of the two. But of the two, I think it's more likely to be Chelsea. But you never know with this league. You never know. It's a bit of an ambiguous answer because I can see both sides of the equation. Right, that's it for this week's edition of 1-to-1 with Simon Jordan. Don't forget to let me know your views on Lampard, Arteta and his histrionics, and of course, Chris Eubank's defeat on Saturday night. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Keep leaving the questions in the comment section below. I shall look forward to seeing you next week.